Reemergence of Dr. Fauci in the news cycle in the last 24 hours, and of course, a reignited debate over the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic may appear to some like we're relitigating the past. Yet the effects of the pandemic and the decisions made by our leaders then continue to shape our future, particularly that of our children. Studies from prominent institutions, including Harvard and Stanford, have repeatedly shown massive learning loss among students as a result of COVID-era school lockdowns. One major report finds a 9-point drop in math skills, reading scores retreating to where they were in the 1970s. Long-term, a predicted 6% lower lifetime earning among the so-called lost generation of COVID-19 era kids. Our very own Batya Ungar-Sargon was one of the first to press Fauci on this fallout years ago as the country came to terms with the measures taken during an unprecedented public health crisis.
The schools that did close down, we're now seeing just disastrous levels of learning loss among poor children, children of color, mental health crisis. I wonder if you would recommend locking down schools if you had to do it all over again.
Well, you know, again, it's first of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. You're asking me questions. You're talking about the CDC is the public health agency that uses their epidemiologists and their science-based approach to make recommendations. Again, I have been on the record of saying that always try to the best of your ability to keep the children in school, but in a safe environment.
Did he really have such little influence? Fauci's newly revealed diary entries seem to contradict what he told Batya at the time. In one, dated on March of 2020, Fauci writes about pressing then New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio to shut down New York City public schools, bars, and restaurants. He also writes about influencing California and the administration of Governor Gavin Newsom to do the same thing. Joining me now is Batya herself, host of Batya on NewsNation, and Dan Turrentine, former Democratic advisor and co-host of The Huddle. Great to see you both. Batya, I watched that interview in its entirety. Incredible that you asked those tough questions back then. Reading Fauci's diary entries from March of 2020 about convincing de Blasio and Newsom to close schools. Looking back at his answer that you did press him on, what do you make of this answer now?
Right. Of course, he just lied to our faces. He's very good at that. He'll do a lot of that tomorrow where he'll sort of redefine the terms of the question to act like he's not lying. I'm so appreciative of you, Hannah, for pointing out the horrific learning loss. But of course, that wasn't the only thing that happened. A lot of poor children, the only nutritious meal they get in a day, they get at school.
That's right.
And they didn't have that for 2 years. Children who go to school encounter what are called mandated reporters, meaning every person who works in a school has to report child abuse. Children were locked at home with their abusers with no escape for 2 years because of that man. And he has the gall to deny it to our faces. Autistic children who every skill that they acquire is so hard won, locked at home, losing those skills day by day. Do you know what it was like for parents to watch that? The suffering, horrific. But I think it's really important we look forward. A lot of Americans probably are not, top of mind Anthony Fauci accountability. What happened was, under the guise of objective science, there was a power grab and an abuse of our civil liberties, the likes of which we have never seen before. And it was totally politicized. It was designed to hurt Donald Trump. And to this day, Americans have lost trust in the medical institution. They don't want to give their kids the measles shot. Children are going to die of measles. And so much of this goes back to this man, Dr. Fauci.
Dan, I'm watching your reaction. Fauci was aware that there were leading scientists who believed early on about the lab leak theory, and it was the more plausible one. Now we're reading his diary entries. They seem to show he believed the mortality rate from COVID was similar to the flu. Publicly, and I remember this clearly, he said it was 10 times deadlier. How do you square those entries with his public statements back then?
Well, look, there's a lot in those diaries, right?
Yes.
Start with the fact that if you kind of believe, and Batya and I are friends and I love her, but you would have to then think that I don't believe that Dr. Fauci's North Star was to harm Donald Trump and to defeat him. right? If you read those diaries, they start with Donald Trump is repeatedly asking me to say things that I know are not true, right? Because Trump wanted to say everything was good when we knew things increasingly were not. Then it goes to the origin kind of became a topic of conversation. And as he says in the diaries, it may be, some people think it. And as he notes, I am dealing with an incoming of conspiracy theories, which we all know in today's environment, there was absolutely no shortage of. Were there mistakes? 100%. Whose idea was the shutdown and who announced it on national television? Donald Trump did, right? That has kind of gotten lost. Everyone says it was Biden. It all started with Donald Trump. It was Ron DeSantis, who was the first governor to say, I don't think this is a good idea. We have 4 boys. One of our boys was in kindergarten, was home for 18 months from school, did not learn to read. It has taken him 5 years to catch up. We know this well as a family, but I do not think Dr. Fauci's North Star was to take out Donald Trump. I believe he tried his best and he made mistakes, as every politician did.
Batya, let's look forward. What would accountability look like even with Biden's preemptive pardon of Fauci a few years ago? Both of you are laughing. Batya, tell me.
I mean, just preemptive pardon, what? The idea that, you know, the Democrats love to call Trump corrupt. I mean, what is more corrupt than a preemptive pardon? But yeah, so Fauci cannot be held accountable for any of the perjury he did before Congress prior to that pardon. So tomorrow, if he lies, they'll get him. But I imagine what he'll do a lot of is pleading the fifth and a lot of these prevarications like what he did to me in 2022, because he knows that they are waiting and licking their chops and just hoping to catch him out on something that the preemptive pardon doesn't cover.
Batya, let me stick with you because obviously we all remember that time I was in New York City. When we critique Fauci now, hindsight is 2020. I remember he was a hero to so many people, including healthcare workers. How do we critique him now so many years later? What would the narrative be?
I think, you know, to Dan's point, I'm not going to argue that everything he did was, you know, to hurt Trump. What happened was he got caught up in this vainglorious view of himself. The diaries are full of his obsession with his own fame. He was having private dinners with Jake Tapper. He was on the phone with Barbara Streisand. He was being feted by the glitterati, and they hate Trump. And their North Star is, we need to destroy Trump. And I think he just got caught up in all of that. Dan, you mentioned that Trump was asking him to lie. He obviously had no problem lying when it hurt Trump or to protect himself, right? About the lab leak, which he was worried. The lab leak, of course, points back to the guy funding gain-of-function research, right? So he had no problem lying. And I think that he got caught up in this vainglorious worship of his own celebrity, which was politicized because our media and our celebrities are so filled with this hatred of Trump.
Dan, Trump was the president, but I think it's safe to say both he and the nation trusted Fauci, even if, like many Americans like you, believe Dr. Fauci had the best intentions. Why is it still so difficult for some on the left to critique what research now shows were disastrous policies?
Well, that is a very legit question. And I think it helped fuel the return of Donald Trump, was that Democrats did not say it. We constantly talked about experts, and you have to defer to everyone, as if political leaders had no voice in this. As you say, there were lots of mistakes with kids, with other things. And I do think the Democratic Party in 2028 is going to have to acknowledge this and say where we did wrong. But I will say this today as we head into the midterms. You said it in your opening segment. This is like talking about the 2020 election. Yeah. I know this animates some people, but if I walk down the street of any city in the USA and asked a swing voter, what are the 5 most important things? What the origin of COVID was would not be on their top 50.
There's no doubt about that. This question is for both of you. Dan, I will start with you. What do you expect tomorrow from Fauci?
Well, I'll be curious because he does like the spotlight. I don't think he probably wants to take the 5th, but Batya may be right. Over, under, 5 or 6 times taking the 5th, I'd probably take the over.
All right, I know we'll all be watching Dan Turrentine. Batya, it's always good to see you, my friend, and be sure to catch Batya, of course, on NewsNation Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Guys, thank you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.